What's up, everyone? Hope you're all doing great. Today we're diving into a topic that always gets people talking this time of year. Potential surprise cuts for the Las Vegas Raiders after the 2025 NFL Draft. Now, this has kind of become a tradition here on the channel, where I go through a handful of names that might catch some fans off guard if they were let go. Look, I know some folks out there might argue that these names aren't exactly shocking, and hey, fair enough. But I want to be clear, this list isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's based on real evaluation, on things I've been observing with this team. Some of these predictions don't pan out, sure, but others actually come true. I remember just last year, I brought up a guy who had just been signed and said he might be on the chopping block. People doubted it, but boom! Few days later, he was released. So yeah, it's always good to stay ahead of the curve. Today's format is straightforward. I've got 5 names lined up. Guys who could be on the outside looking in and now that the draft is in the rearview mirror. And I've ranked them from least to most surprising just to keep things spicy. So let's kick this off with the 5th. Name on the list, Zamir White. Now, depending on who you ask, this one might not be that surprising. Some of you might be thinking, Zamir White, really? And others might be like, yeah, I saw this coming. Personally, I think he's talented enough to be in the NFL. That's not really the question here. The question is, does he truly fit in with what this Raiders team is building right now? Drafted in the 4th round back in 2022, he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. His cap hit is sitting at just over $1.2 million. If the Raiders decide to part ways with him, they save around $1 million. And though they'd still carry a dead cap hit of about $186,000. But here's where things get interesting. The Raiders just spent a 1st round pick on Ashton Jeanty, a guy who brings serious juice to that backfield. And look, this isn't about trashing Zamir. It's more about recognizing what Jeanty offers. He's explosive, he's versatile, and he fits the modern mold of what you want in a feature back. On top of that, they also brought in Raheem Mostert to be the number 2. And Sincere McCormick made big strides last year. When you take all of that into account, it just becomes hard to see where Zamir fits in. And let's not forget, he doesn't play special teams. That's a big deal when you're fighting for one of those final roster spots. If he contributed there, the conversation might be different. But without that added value, the case for keeping him weakens. So honestly, I think it might be best for both sides to move on. Fresh start, clean slate. Sometimes that's just what a player needs. All right, let's keep it rolling. Coming in at number 4, we've got Charles Snowden, edge rusher for the Raiders. Now this one's tough. Snowden had a solid year in terms of production. 39 tackles and 1.5 sacks. And he was actually a guy that a lot of fans were pulling for last offseason. He had a presence in the locker room. People respected him. But here's the issue. There was a DUI incident back in July. And whether we like it or not, that stuff sticks with a player, especially when a new coaching staff comes in and wants to set a fresh tone. If the Raiders cut Snowden, they save close to $1 million. $960,000 to be exact. And with the additions they've made, Malcolm Kuntz re-signed, 2 new versatile defensive tackles added through the draft, it makes Snowden's spot that much more vulnerable. Look, if it were just about football, I'd be rooting for him to stay. But when you factor in everything else, including that off-field issue, it complicates the picture. If I'm in that coaching room making decisions, I'm thinking about more than just stats. I'm thinking about culture, headlines, distractions. The last thing you want going into training camp is your team's name popping up in the wrong kind of story. And unfortunately, Snowden is still tied to that negative chapter. It's not about punishing the guy, it's about protecting the locker room. So yeah, if it were me, I'd probably move on. Now look, I always say this and I mean it, one of the best parts of this channel is getting your takes. So as you're watching, think about who you put on your list of surprise cuts and hit the comment section. I want to hear your thoughts. You guys always bring a unique perspective and I really appreciate the interaction. And hey, if you've got a name you think everyone's sleeping on, let me know. All right, let's go ahead and talk about a 3rd guy on the list, Thayer Munford. This one might hit a little harder for some fans. I just dropped a video recently breaking down my early 53-man roster projection. Depending on when you're watching this, that video might already be up, or it might be coming soon. But in that projection, Munford was one of the names that had me thinking twice. So here's the deal. If the Raiders only keep 8 offensive linemen, Munford could be the odd man out. I've got about 8 linemen I'll trust to make that final cut unless injuries change the landscape. Munford was a 7th round pick in 2022. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. The Raiders drafted 2 more offensive linemen in the 3rd round this year, Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. They also seem pretty high on DJ Glaze, enough that they didn't feel the need to bring in anyone else for depth. Now Munford didn't have a terrible 2024 season, but he didn't exactly take a leap either. When he had to step in for Colton Miller on the left side, he struggled. Switched him to the right? Same story. I've always felt Munford is a better guard than a tackle, and maybe there's a way to hang on to him in that role. But if I'm making the call, I'd rather use that roster spot and those cap dollars somewhere else. Of course, if they go with 9 offensive linemen, that changes things. Keeping Munford as a backup interior guy wouldn't be the worst move in the world. But with all the competition in camp and the emergence of some younger talent, it's hard to justify holding on to someone who hasn't really solidified his role. One more thing I want to touch on before we keep going is Ashton Jeanty again. His jersey is flying off the shelves, folks. He's already 4th in sales among rookies, right behind guys like Shedrick Sanders, Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter. If you're thinking about picking one up, now's the time. But back to the list. Let's move on to the second name, and this one might cause a few raised eyebrows, Leke Fotu. Now, I know some people are going to say, wait, they just signed this guy. Why would they cut him already? And look, I get that. But here's the thing, just because a player signs in free agency doesn't mean he's a lock to make the roster, especially not in today's NFL. Fotu's deal doesn't carry a huge financial weight. Cutting him would save the team about $568,000. The Raiders used a 4th round pick on Tonka Hemingway and picked up J.J. Peggies in the 6th. Neither of those guys may have Fotu's size or experience, but they bring a ton of versatility. And then there's the undrafted rookie Anthony Booker and the international program signee Laki Toya, who weighs in at a ridiculous 350 pounds. The D-line room is getting crowded fast. Fotu might be a fine rotational guy, but if the coaching staff sees more long-term upside in these younger players, then he could be in trouble. Even John Ulu, a young player who might need to bulk up a bit, could earn a spot if the coaches like his tape. So, yeah, keep your eyes on Fotu. Don't be surprised if he ends up as a cut casualty before the season kicks off. And now we get to number 1 on the list. The guy who, in my opinion, could be the biggest surprise cut after the draft. Dylan Laub. I can already hear some of you saying, that's not that shocking. And maybe not, depending on who you ask. But let's talk through it. Laub's cap hit is just under $1 million, and cutting him saves around $882,000. Not a huge number, but still some savings. The Raiders added Jeanty, brought in Mostert, and Sincere McCormick looks like he's earned a spot. That's 3 running backs already. And then you've got Chris Collier, maybe even someone like Conroy, that hybrid fullback tight end who's shown some real flashes. Laub had 1 carry last season and fumbled. That's not the kind of stat line that helps your case. The only reason I could see him sticking around is for special teams, but even that role might be fading. In a recent interview with Tommy Mellott, he talked about his connection to the Raiders special teams coach and how those relationships matter. If Mellett's earning trust in that area, Laub's path gets even narrower. The Raiders also drafted 3 wideouts, Jack Beck, Dante Dorton Jr., and Mellott himself. That likely shifts some special teams duties over to them or even to Trey Tucker. So unless Laub turns it around in a big way during camp, it's hard to see him making the cut. I know there was a team that met with Laub last year before the combine. So yeah, there's some interest around the league, but when you're letting go of a 6th round pick just 1 year later, it's always going to feel a bit like a surprise. Still, given the context, it's starting to feel inevitable. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders, and don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a recent interview, Pete Carroll, the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, expressed his surprise and concern regarding the technical abilities of wide receiver Shedrick Jackson. Carroll, known for his candid approach and extensive experience, in the NFL shared his thoughts on Jackson's performance in the team's early training sessions. According to the veteran coach, he was shocked by the player's lower than expected technical skill level, a revelation that has left many wondering about Jackson's future prospects in the league. Shedrick Jackson, who joined the Raiders as part of their offseason acquisitions, was anticipated to be a promising addition to the team's wide receiver core. However, Carroll's remarks have cast doubt on whether Jackson will live up to expectations. Despite Jackson's athleticism and raw physical potential, Carroll pointed out that the wide receiver's technical fundamentals are lacking, particularly when it comes to route running, ball tracking, and overall hand-eye coordination. The wide receiver, who played college football at Auburn University, had shown flashes of potential during his collegiate career. However, transitioning to the NFL often requires players to refine their skills and adapt to the speed and complexity of professional football. Jackson, who entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent, has yet to prove that he can make that transition smoothly. While it's not uncommon for new players to struggle with technical aspects early in their careers, Carroll's frankness suggests that Jackson's development may be more challenging than initially anticipated. The Raiders coaching staff, under Carroll's leadership, will now have to work tirelessly to help Jackson close the gap in his technical game if he is to earn a spot on the team's roster. With the competition at wide receiver being fierce, the margin for error is slim. For Jackson, this assessment is a wake-up call. The NFL is known for its rigorous demands, and players must quickly adapt to the level of competition. While his physical attributes may have impressed during his college career, it's his technical development that will ultimately determine his future in the league. Carroll's statement also raises broader questions about the scouting and development process for undrafted players. While some players emerge from college as refined NFL-ready talents, others need additional time to hone their skills. Jackson's situation serves as a reminder of the challenges that come with making the leap from college football to the professional ranks. As training camp progresses, all eyes will be on Shedrick Jackson to see if he can rise to the challenge and improve the areas highlighted by Pete Carroll. The coming weeks will be crucial for Jackson's chances to secure a roster spot and prove that he belongs in the NFL. For now, the Raiders coaching staff remains hopeful, but the clock is ticking for the young wide receiver to demonstrate his ability to meet the demanding technical standards of professional football. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.